Good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, wherever you are watching this new episode from. And tonight, or should I say this morning or this afternoon, I have Thandi Walton from all the way from Zimbabwe, all the way from where Mugabe, the home of Mugabe, the famous President Mugabe, the freedom fighter from Zimbabwe. And today we're going to talk with her. She's an amazing woman in this industry, and I do believe we have loads to learn about her. I am super excited to have her. A couple of weeks ago, I just bumped into her work and what she's been doing, but she lives in the US, so this is going to be a very interesting conversation. What she's learned, what is different. We're also going to talk about agave, which is one of those interesting plants that makes for an interesting product that we all know, whether tequila or mezcal, or why she loves it so much. And yes, hi Thandi, I can see you're clearly here and we are ready to do this. I'm just getting myself ready. I don't know if you're ready. Are you ready? Longing to host you for a while. Super stoked actually. Hey,
Hi,
hi sister, how are you doing?
I'm okay, brother. Good to meet you.
Yes, how good. What time is it there?
It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So that's 3 o'clock EST or 3 o'clock? 'Cause
EST. So when you say EST, I was like, okay, we on at 2 o'clock, so I'm gonna, jump in. Hi, Calafias. Um,
I always get that time difference thing just a bit of a jumble. I mean, because I'm like 10 p.m. here is like 2 p.m.
10
East of.
p.m. there. So what time is it your way right now?
It's 10.
10 in the morning.
10 in the evening, 10 p.m.
Oh, okay. So you are ahead of me 7 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
same
there.
time in Zimbabwe. Hi,
So how
Edward.
have you?
I'm sorry. I see a few people in the thread here, so I was just saying, hey.
Yeah, everyone is asking how you've been doing because clearly you're having a blast, but then you had to cancel one of your classes, which you normally do. I think this week or last week, right?
Yeah, it was actually yesterday I had to postpone. It's just mental wise, I lost my godson, so I've been trying to deal with that and just balance out, right? And so
Mhm.
yesterday and the whole hour of me doing what I do, I just felt like I wasn't gonna make it an hour. So I gave
Okay.
myself a mental break, and it's important to give yourself a mental break. And I realized that I needed that break.
Okay.
And I also know that people look for my energy, right? And so
Yeah.
yesterday I didn't have it. I was took
I mean,
itself.
you always got crazy energy. But before we talk about that, I mean, we gotta talk about a little bit about wellness. I mean, how important is wellness and mindfulness to you,
You know
especially
what?
in this?
So I'm going to start by saying your health is your wealth, right? Your health is your
Okay.
wealth. So I work out 4 times a week. I'm mindful of what I eat. I know that I'm a bartender for most of my life, right? And the life behind the bar sometimes is harsh. You get to eat. When you get to eat, you just literally standing up and checking down something and going back to the bar. Whereas when I realized that was the life, of
Yeah.
hospitality, I had to make choices for myself, right? And say, hey, I
Yes.
got to wear proper shoes. I got to go to the chiropractor once a week to get an adjustment because I'm standing on my feet and walking up and down. I have to work out. I have to eat properly and down to packing my own meals when I go to work. I pack my meals.
Mhm.
I eat every 3 hours or what have you. So, and then if I don't have my food, my job where I'm at, they actually provide us with food, a cafeteria with food. So I make sure I get my little food going and I sit down and enjoy it and, get some nourishment.
I mean, it's always interesting to see how people look at wellness, especially from different regions. I mean, I guess even from where I am, it's easier, maybe easier or depending on where you are, because with the farm in place, it's always easier to get fresh food from the farm as
Yeah.
compared to buying stuff in the supermarket, which is always another perspective of looking at how well we take care of ourselves, because we need to take care of ourselves properly, right?
Of course, yeah. So it's crazy you say that because, of course, I grew up in Zimbabwe, right? Born and
Yeah, you
raised.
born and raised in
Never.
Zimbabwe, but then you decided to fly off. What
What
happened?
made me decide to leave Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
Well, my mom. So, my mom came to America when she was 18.
Okay.
Um, when she was 16. So, the thing at home, you get shipped out of school basically. So my mom was able to come overseas. My grandfather and my grandmother were pretty much had a decent life for, us and my mom, right? So she was able to come overseas to pursue and finish her education. So once she was done with that, I was. At home and I came to visit. Um, I came to visit just to check out America, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, look at this and that, the third. So little personal nice things, but it's, I still needed to go back and finish my all levels. My mom was so adamant about me finishing secondary school at home. So I went and finished. Once I finished, my mom was trying to secure things and get me a visa and all these things. So when that happened, I left home, which my grandmother raised me. So all my life I've been with my grandmother. So now this is an opportunity to learn my mom. I knew her, but I didn't know her, right? So now I
Mhm.
have an opportunity to build a relationship or face to face, FaceTime with my mom every day life with my mother. So that's how I became, well, that's how I came to America.
Yeah. And now talking about you, you came into America. I guess that's my phone flipping up. Bye. Where were we? Did you experience any of what the predominant Black Americans experience in terms of stuff with race, or was it just a case of you found yourself in a place where it was okay for you to be who you were in your own space?
So it's crazy. So, um, wow, you just took me back. Okay, so in terms of just adjusting and being accepted, I guess that's what you mean. The fact that I came to visit first and then went home, I kind of had a perspective, right? But then
Yeah.
that perspective, when it became real, it was something totally different, right? So it was like, okay, they love me. It was like, oh, you're so different. I never met anyone from Zimbabwe. Your accent, you're so proper. It was all these things, right? So and when it's me and there's another young Black lady next to me, I did see the difference of treatment. And the
Mhm.
treatment was towards, I was cool because I was not from here. So I wasn't considered totally American or Black per se, which was kind of crazy to me. So it's like I can see the difference. People come see me, they have this attitude of, oh, Thandi, hey, she's from Zimbabwe. It's always like this thing
I
about
mean,
me
it's the
from
same thing. I
Zimbabwe.
mean, I always find it very awkward when, like, when we visit and you're like, "You're from Kenya or you're from Zimbabwe." I'm like, "Yeah." It's like Africa is a continent. It's not a country. You
Hello.
realize that we have like 54 countries within one region, and we all speak different. I think the only
Yeah.
common thing about all of us is that we speak English. That's it.
I always say English is my second language. Don't forget that.
And English is our second language, so you're not counting the fact that you may be from a sub-tribe of a sub-tribe of a sub-tribe, or
Hmm.
something.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
hence communicating right now. Unless if you speak Ndebele, we can speak Ndebele.
I wouldn't want us to go on like
Oh,
so I'm gonna try
Google
just
can
keep it
translate.
English for everyone to understand. So
Yeah.
I mean, taking you back into, I mean, how did you find yourself in the industry? Like, was it something that you had always planned to be in, or was it something that just happened? Because I guess for most of us, it was an accident to happen. It's not like we planned to be in the industry one way or another.
So I didn't plan it either, bro. So it was crazy because um like so when you're in school here, it's easy to get a hospitality job serving because you get the right schedule. You can actually say, hey, I'm in school this time, I cannot work this time. So it's workable, right? So you find yourself in this industry making quick money. You're still able to go to school, you get to study, you're still, able to function. So I accidentally fell in love with the whole hospitality, taking care of people. And I just mainly because I was so natural and good at it. Like it was so natural for me to care for people,
I
or
mean,
make.
but you wouldn't say, I think for us, as generally African speaking, isn't it something that we just have inherently? Because, like, growing up with grandmas and all these people, it's like, if you are African, if you generally have visitors come around your house and you always have to
Right.
learn how to cook on the spot or always
Hmm,
have
hmm.
extra tea for the visitors. It's not like, I mean, it's hard you go to the West and you find people are like always welcoming you. Here it's like people will always bump into the house and be like, you gotta have something for the visitors, right? And based out of that fact, is it did you find it easier for you to adapt into the industry, or was it just something that just happened naturally? Because
No, so
either
like you said, it's instilled in us to be that kind. So it's natural for me to be caring. It's natural for me to do, my duties that were asked of me as a server. It was easy for me because all my life I do that for my family, right? So it
yeah,
comes off very genuine, and it's genuinely the energy is level. So, and people feel energy, and I always say this: people feel your energy, and they treat you as the energy you allow them to treat you. So I
yeah,
am always calm. If you're friendly, I'm friendly. You treat me good. So my number one rule, and number one rule, period, right, is treat others as you would like to be treated. And I
yeah,
live by that rule because I wouldn't imagine mistreating anyone and then mistreating me, the same way as well. So it was easy for me to just like gel in and glide. And then I was like, okay, I can do this, but no, I have this family over here that's expecting me to get this masters and 10 of them, And so now what do I say to my mom, But I just carry on going to school and hey Cedric. And so from one place to another, I got to get behind the bar one day by accident. It was like, hey, it was this bar that I like going to. And I would just sit there and watch the bartenders, and I would just go, oh my God, they're just moving, shaking, mixing all this. And I'm like, I can do that because I cook, And I think I'm going to go back to that question because I have a question for you. And so I was like, I know flavors. I grew up in Africa. We used to get, about tomatoes and pita, greens outside, guava tree, all these things from outside, and you're cooking right then. So now I know flavors. So I can apply a little flavor behind the bar. So I'm thinking,
I
I
mean,
don't see
sometimes I always wonder. I actually always wonder how people go to the mall and I get excited with the mall. Like for us growing up, we got excited going like literally
LAC.
to the farm. Growing up on the farm, it was for us. It was easier. I mean, with all that work, we still enjoyed getting fresh milk. I think it was just not. Then when you come back into the city, it's like you have to buy a packet of milk or you gotta buy something from the super. It was strange. So when
Yeah,
people now start talking about even stuff like nutrition, you will understand the difference between what you get from like a commercial farm or an organic farm. And it's very strange how now this is something like we are making it look like a big thing, especially in our industry, where
yeah,
we've been
yes.
doing it for years. It's like, do you realize that we've just been doing it for years?
So hence it comes easy.
To us, it
It
comes
comes easy.
easy, but most people it doesn't. And it's awkward because, I mean, even growing up, we used to have grandmas giving us this traditional medicine. And when you look and think back, we never used to like that stuff. Growing
Nah.
up, it was like, it was horrible.
It was
But people, like,
horrible.
you gotta take. It's not an option. Just like, then you're looking at it's awkward because I still look back at that and then I'm looking at how we have all these amazing brands, Campari, Aperol, and like, do you realize that if you brought we already had it.
Hence, I love everything Aperol, everything Campari. Like, I know
But
this taste.
you can't beat the fact that we were like ours was you know thank God to Campari and Aperol, like it's distilled much more purified, much more
Hmm, hmm.
looking
We had
nice.
the raw deal. It was
We
raw.
have to go back and boil and And so when you got used to it, like no one when you take Campari and Aperol, I was like, what is this? Like seriously? Like,
I know. There's much
I
we
mean,
can
so
talk about.
interesting because even now when you think about bitters, I'm like, bitters is such a big thing, but in our own interpretation of bitters, it's
Hmm.
so interesting how um we do not have like a bottle packaging, but like if
Hmm.
you go back to grandma, she will know what she'll be like,
So,
this does this,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and now you have to learn. It's not like no, you don't have an option, right?
Hey, Ramona. I'm sorry. I sleep, greet people. I'm
Yeah.
listening to you.
I can see
The
who's
Bourbon
it? Lacey
Bohemian.
joined. The Bourbon Bohemian has joined. Yeah, we spoke. She wants to start a garden in, well, I don't know if she's staying in an apartment or something. Like for
Hmm.
us,
Hmm.
I don't know. So her challenges are easier than ours.
I
She
know.
doesn't have to. I mean, she doesn't have to deal with monkeys and God knows what.
Listen, so I tell people about the stories where you have to chase baboons off your and if they catch you, they will whoop you. So then the baboons will
You know,
spank you.
I keep telling guys these stories and they think it's a joke. Wait until they come and they see. Like, literally, like when you grow up in places like this, you have to run chasing like monkeys, like
Yeah.
now when you have like the guava trees or the loquat trees, which are literally coming into season, the
Hmm.
monkeys they don't come and ask you like for permission, like, hey, we
Nah,
have
they're not.
some. They just come. They just come rolling and crashing. They crush the party and they're like, yo, we are here. So when you talk about
Yes.
it, like we realize that's what we grew up with.
Hmm.
But then
So
when
you
we
said,
go into the city and we look all dressy and nice, you don't get to see that side because we are in taxis and whatever, tuxedos and suits. But then when we leave the city, we are a whole different thing. We are like we are very handy.
very handy, very handy. And you know what? I'm humbled and thankful for my humble beginnings, because that's where it's not forgetting where I'm from and my upbringing and my flavors. I always try to like my cocktails always have something that says Africa. It says fresh. It
And that
says
is essentially that is important because I mean, even if we get to talk about the cocktail culture, for example,
hmm
so much of what we see within the cocktail culture has borrowed loads from Africa,
Africa.
but they
Yeah.
don't pay but they don't pay homage to Africa. And it's such a sad thing that we take all these things for granted. Whether we're talking about, for example, something like coffee, which
hmm
coffee became such a huge thing. I mean,
Yeah.
coffee has been in Africa for the longest time,
Oh yeah.
but
Oh, since I was when 1970, I remember that when I was first sent, I've ever
and it's
recognized
so
and know a day's coffee.
people are talking about like coffee liqueurs. I'm like, you understand coffee has been in our backyard for
Hmm.
decades.
Yeah.
This coffee, these tea fads, this all these so-called trends around products or ingredients, we just had it. We just didn't have the opportunity to take that knowledge or that experience and make it better for the industry here. And people have taken that and explored that in the West, but
Hmm.
without paying homage to what is African. And I feel like it's now high time for people within the industry, especially either black bartenders or black entrepreneurs, to actually start making sense and connecting to these places because that's where the potential is. Whether it's in coffee or tea or in chocolate, the chocolate beans and stuff like that, which is something that we see it being a big thing in the West, but I mean, you can imagine if they could do the same thing here, what what that would mean for the people here. You know,
So, what are your thoughts on fixing it? What would you suggest would be the solution?
I mean, if
Aside
I was to look,
from me saying this is where I'm from, this is the
I,
and
I think, I
me
think,
using my platform for our history.
I mean, number one, I think black bartenders should start to learn more about what's grown in Africa, the ingredients that come from different areas in Africa, because there's loads of stuff that come from Africa that we need to be able to understand. number one. Number two, understand the history of most of these things, whether it's spirits or whatever it might be, because most of these spirits have a history in Africa. And for the entrepreneurs in the industry, why don't they spend more time giving back to the same Black community, but in Africa, whereby the future for this industry is much bigger. So, for example, if you're looking at aging of spirits, for example, the opportunities to age different spirits in Africa is better, and it will always be better. Why? Because we, in essence, have the tropical weather almost in almost all of the countries. So if you're
Yeah.
looking at it from a distillation point of view, it makes a whole lot of sense.
It
If you're
does.
looking at it from an aging point of view, it all makes sense. So I mean, for me personally, I think there are various opportunities for people to actually play a part in, and not just cocktails, because there must be a way out. And plus, when you get to visit the motherland, you always learn a lot, and you get to come back and experience something different that you are not experiencing probably in the US or in the UK. What do you think?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts?
I think that I'm also I recognize the problem and I understand it. But my take on it is how I can fix it, right? How I can
So,
fix
for
it.
example, do you
Yeah, it's
buy do you buy stuff from Africa, like general? Do you buy like African spirits? That's another question I normally get to ask people. Do you know what people are making in Africa? For example, are we familiar?
so my speaking which my sister is in South Africa. She's in Durban and she's opened up her own distillery making gin.
The whole South African market is just it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know how many
So
producers we have in South Africa as we're currently speaking? It's over 500 producers of gin. It's crazy.
really, I was I really, I'm glad you say that. I was wondering because she was like, I'm start with gin, and then someone was saying, hey, South Africa is blossoming in gin, and I haven't even like began to study and like do a research to find out. Please tell me more. What gins are coming from South Africa?
There's too much gin coming. It's like gin has now become like um, the estate thing. Like every estate has a distillery.
Well, as you say, the
So
terroir for it is perfect.
I mean, the terroir is perfect. The licensing, the registration, the distillation processes are getting easier because there's a lot of investment, there's a lot of confidence within the market to actually make these things and sell it outside. And so because of that, I mean, I could literally tell you that every week I stopped even counting how many gin products are coming out, whether it's in Western of the Cape or Cape Town or whatever it might be, because there's so much, and there's so much different ways that people are making the product. That now the only thing that you have to now understand is
Drink
just
some water.
basically get to taste the different, the different types of gin, and be able to identify what is what makes for a craft gin, what makes for, because there are all these different types of gin, and in the end of the day, you just gotta choose what works for your palate, you
Right,
know.
right.
Because trust me, if you went to South Africa right now, I doubt it whether you'd be able to pick every bottle of gin from every distillery. It's too much.
Me and Jen, we're not friends. I make great gin cocktails, but me and Jen after two,
But there's
in
also
this,
agave spirit. The agave
I
spirits
see
coming up.
tequila agrees with me all day. Like agave in the
I'm
morning, in the
talking about,
evening.
yeah, there is a lot of experiments on agave spirits in not just in South Africa but across Africa. But you can call it tequila, you can call it mezcal, but they are there, and I
Yeah,
have to say that they taste very different from what you'll expect.
I
The
can
terroir
imagine.
here, I mean, the terroir here is different. The aging is different, so it's three times faster as compared to most places. So it's like you aging the agave spirit in the Caribbean island, but now instead of Caribbean island, it's in South Africa or it's in East Africa. So that's another thing that is very interesting to note.
Hmm. It's more, in my head, I'm like, it's mainly because of temperature. You say 3 times faster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes
Something
sense.
that we and I kept saying that's the opportunity for people to explore within our region, and that's not just on the agave front, like even the different communities what they have been producing traditionally as traditional spirits. If we put investment in it and make it better, then you'll probably find that there's a lot out here in Africa that each location or each country has something different to offer. Even as something as simple as a cane spirit like rum. Cane spirit
Hmm.
in rum is crazy how what you take in west of Africa is very different from what you get in east of Africa or in the southern of, everyone has their own different way of making it. And that's a beauty about Africa in general
Yeah.
that people
I
need to
think
actually
that's
get
what I
it.
really. I think what I'm missing is that part to gel with what I've learned here. Once I combine the two, I think it's just
It will be good.
yeah. So that's my quest, and you are going to be my friend mentor over there, my Buddhi, and you're gonna say, Tandi, this
I'm
gin that's new, you didn't study it. Tandi, get this gin where however I gotta get it. I am all for tasting and promoting and
I mean,
building
even when I was
our.
used speaking, there is so Kenya produces one of the most expensive gins out there in the world. Procera just won a couple of awards. They have just released the new gin which is called the Green Dot, which is like the
Mhm.
will be the single variant of what they'll be predominantly selling now on their label, which is
Mhm.
something exceptional. So you can imagine it's going for around $100.
Really?
But at the bar, it's gonna be $45 for a single, which means it's a lot, but it's worth the price because they're using African juniper berries. That's the stuff that we're talking about. I mean, if you look at, for example, the best rum out here in the world that I know of, that is not Jamaican, that is not Caribbean, is from South Africa. It's called Moba. The single rum um, overproof is $100 as well. So that already says that there's a potential for African products to not just be luxury, but be very good. People need to understand that we are also doing this. And once you get yourself onto the African terroir or the African experience, it's so hard for you to get yourself out of it. Because
Mm.
once you taste what is here, then you start comparing and saying there's no comparison at all.
Listen, I guess I'm coming back home because I didn't want to taste what African juniper tastes like, okay? I'm serious. Like, I'm sure the botanicals at home in gin are crazy.
It's
Crazy.
crazy. Totally
Wow.
crazy. I mean, do you know the stuff I've seen making gin in Africa is insane. There's there's a gin that is made out of elephant poop. It's called Ndovlu. I mean, it's I saw that concept. I was like, who thought about it? I tell
So,
people,
how are they utilizing the poop though?
so you gotta think about it like this. Do you ever realize that elephants don't get sick? African elephants don't
Okay.
get sick. Weird
Okay.
enough. And that's because they spend all of their time roaming around eating all these
Eating
weird
food. Yeah.
botanicals that are found in the forest.
Mm. Okay. Got it.
You can
Got it. But
imagine
I still want to taste
someone took
it.
a concept like that and just was like, I don't know what he was thinking, but I guess he was seated somewhere. The story is he was seated somewhere, he observed the elephant, he was like, wait a minute, if I collect this and dehydrate it and run
Mm-hmm.
it through a it will still carry the botanicals without the acidity. It's like the coffee that you have from Indonesia, the Java coffee concept. So
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
concept applied it to the African elephants. And now that's basically what he does. And he makes a gin out of it. And when you taste it, it's so good. I was like, you realize this is the difference between Africa and other regions because you can find animals that take botanicals like that and play around with something like that and still make a successful product that is not just good, but really good.
It doesn't sound really good. Sounds excellent. It
I've
sounds
been a big fan of
excellent.
them. Like once I tasted their product, I was like, this is good. Like the things that you need to see about Africa. The so the category is interesting. The agave category is interesting. The ram category is interesting. The cachaça category in Africa is interesting. So there is a lot for people to actually see or take. And that's not forgetting the botanicals that we have across the entire continent.
Mm. So somebody
Mm.
wants to know what's the brand name of the gin.
It's
Your
called
gin.
Indovlu. Indovlu.
Indulge. Like
Indovlu.
Indulge.
Let me send it to you. It's Indovlu, yes. Really
Indulge,
cool.
yeah. Indulge, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Indulge means elephant, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That makes
you had
sense.
questions. Yeah, you
Hmm.
had questions for me. What were your
So,
questions?
my question was, your palate is not only just from the farm aspect of it, but you also were a chef.
Yeah, I was a chef.
So tell me about that transition because I love chef palettes. Your
So
palettes,
funny.
yeah.
My story begins way back before I realized I could be a chef. So growing up, um, I was watching all these food shows and everything, and I was like, you know what? At that point, I did not necessarily think of myself as a chef that I wanted to be, but I always knew that I wanted to be in the food space.
Hmm.
So I used to cook with my mom and my grandparents, and then I used to critique the stuff I do every single day. I would critique to a point where I would go into restaurants, and if the dish wasn't as good as it was supposed to be, I'll be like, I will just blast the restaurant. I'll be like, why will I pay 1,000 shillings to get this dish and it's not executed perfectly? So for me, transitioning from a food critic to a chef was something that came just naturally. So unlike most people who went to school and studied for it, I just happened to read a lot, experiment a lot, taste a lot. And I guess for me, that was something that I always loved about myself. I always wanted to be to challenge myself on the status quo of most of these things. So when I got into the industry eventually, so I happened to be a part of a team that was organizing the cake festival, which is one of these big festivals that tries to raise awareness and education through cake. So you bring a couple of different bakers, people buy and taste different types of cake. And in the
Hmm.
process, I learned a lot about pastry, a lot about baking. And you kind of see where the baking industry is in this particular country. Given that fact, then I found myself working in conservancies whereby it was just so when you create recipes for conservancies, it's very different from what you create in the city because you either work with a limited product or you work with things within your own region. So it gave me a lot to learn how to pair with what's available in the season. So, and so my challenge actually was interestingly, most people will pair food and wine. And I was like, why the hell will you pair food and wine? Because wine was not my first. I couldn't get wine. I didn't understand wine at all. I was like, this is some sweet drink that is just, it's grape juice. It's just grape. That's it. So in my mind, I was like, who does grape
That's it.
juice and steak? As far as I'm concerned, I want something nice or something different. Because for me, my first experience of drinking wine was probably when I was 18, 19. And I was like, we had gone, like you just go out with your friends and you're like, okay, they buy this like 5 liter wine. And
Hmm.
I'm drinking, nothing is happening. I'm like, this is just some sweet stuff, really sweet stuff. And it's annoying. Nothing is happening. So like 5 hours later, that's when it kicks in. And I wrote to myself, I will never do wine again.
I
Never,
love
ever.
it.
Like I'm afraid of sweet stuff. Like if I see something sweet, I'm like, you know what? I'm good. Thank you, but I'm good.
So you
But
biased.
then
So I'm a wine girl too.
no, but so funny enough, let me just tell you the story. So funny enough, now you get into the kitchen side of things. You have to cook with wine. You
Mm-hmm.
have to uh, take your guests through this experience, but they need to learn about it. So I had to learn by was it by choice? It was just by fire, right? So I get through this experience, I learn, and so now we get to doing all these pairings of steak, chicken, and the different game cuts that we used to get at the conservancy. Um, so how I got now into the spirit side of things was through a friend of mine who happened to be the Bacardi portfolio manager. He made me a simple daiquiri, one of the
Mm,
simplest drinks ever, and I loved the cocktail, and I was like, so in my mind, I'd never looked at the cocktail as something serious.
right.
Because I was like, it's just water, sugar, and stuff. I was like, yeah, whatever. 3 days later, I'm like, can we do it again? Ram lam. I'm like, ram lam. I'm like, so weird enough. Now he sits me down and takes me through all this like weird cocktails of from gin to vodka to rum to tequila to all that. And
Mhm.
so in the weirdest of things, vodka doesn't seem to work with me because I'm like, what is this? It's just water and potatoes, right? It will be always water and potatoes, water. And I'm like, okay. Then I taste gin and I'm like, this is like medicine. I'm like, I rather do the medicine back at home
The
and not
grandmother,
this.
yeah.
None of the medicine is better. This is like juniper heavy scent. Um, Tequila was like, you kind of see stories of it and you're like horrified. But then 2 years later down the line, I begin to like just give everything an open mind. So I end up. So the good thing about me is that every time I try to study stuff, I study it completely.
Mhm.
So, but then the weirdest part is now when it came to RAM, I became like, this is a very interesting thing. It's sugarcane. It's just grass, right?
Yeah.
And I find myself frustrated how simple this thing can be and taste this good. So I find myself now in a place whereby I have to study about this thing, and I'm literally now inducted into Ram by Fire through a friend of mine who started the Africa Ram Girl. She introduces me to like 300 bottles of rum. I'm like tasting and tasting. I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. Who would have thought a mere grass will be this good?
Mm.
And after that, I think the rest is history. Um, she, well, after she teaches me, I'm like, she she takes me to do a master class and she's like, yo, you just like talking like a pastor. You talk about this thing for endless. Because I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, you don't know, guys, like the thing. I'm like, by the way, sugar cane, folks, you guys have been taking sugar. I'm
Yeah.
like, and then all my friends are like, you get your mug, you're just like a bishop, you just preach. So the word came. And I'm like,
Hence the Instagram name, the Bishop. Yeah, okay, I got
yeah.
it.
So now everyone like, you talk about rum. And the pastors talk about stuff, so you're like a pastor, but you're a pastor for rum.
Yeah, I
Like,
get it.
it's fine, whatever. So it sticks. So now every time I talk about rum, everyone's like, yo, this guy when he starts talking about the subject, he will never keep quiet. And I will be like, I will blunt out my statements without fear, without favor, and I
Hmm.
don't care what brand is being represented on the table. I'll be as honest as possible. And so for the first time in the industry, they find someone who's very, very front forward, very straightforward. I mean, if you ask me, I don't show favoritism to any particular brand. I'm like, this is it. So, and at some point, it got to a point whereby, because we have a very young palette of people, consumers in the market, they still
Hmm.
had the Captain Morgans and the I was like, you people, Captain Morgan is not rum.
It's not.
I was like, Captain Morgan is not Ram, Boom Boom is not Ram. So even the brands will not work with me because I was like, I'm not gonna go in front of the pulpit of crowd or the audience and sell something that is not what it is. You cannot go out there and say Boom Boom is a premium Ram. And I'm like, I look at you straight in the face. I'm like, listen, that is liqueur. That is just sugar. And so they didn't like my, but I was like, listen, you wanted the truth. If you want me to help you, you gotta know that I'm not gonna go out there and pitch out something that's a lie. But if
Yes,
you
of
want
course.
an influencer who's gonna do something that is a lie, then so be it. So funny enough, I have never gotten to work with brands that, more or less have a shady reputation. And I think
Mhm.
that's my stand. And so with that came the whole experience of now wanting people to learn more about how to pair rum with food or rum and chocolate or ramens. And I realized people may not understand, but rum is the only spirit that doesn't judge. Rum is the only spirit that can fit everyone in your own hand. So there's a rum for a gin drinker, there's a rum for a whiskey drinker. So literally, like, rum is the only spirit of choice. So for me, it was like, if there was anything that I would drink any single day, is rum, because I realized it speaks of so many characters within one person. So if you wanted to go out and party, rum can fit you. If you wanted to just chill out, rum can do it. So exactly. So I guess now that stuck with me. And no matter how many classes I went, or no matter how many tastings I went of these different spirits, I realized, you know what? I rather buy, let's say, Appleton 12 years is around $60 in our
So do you
market.
say
I
yes
rather
to
buy,
everyone? Friend, she says she's outside the spirit store right now. Which rum should she get? So is it the Ebbleton 12 year? Her name is Ramona, by the way.
yeah, I spoke to Ramona some time back. Yeah, Ramona, let me just say this. Appleton 12 rare blend is a good start for a bourbon drinker.
For a bourbon drinker, you say?
Yeah,
So,
Appleton 12
I'm
is,
going to be honest with you. Me and rum, I think I started off wrong.
yeah,
I think that the rums that it was, my first coming to America, right? And
yeah.
every time we drink rum, it was good. It was just plain rum and coke, you know? Um, but then it was a stage in my life where I don't remember drinking rum no more. And I think that's part of I moved on from the life that I was, the person I was with who was a heavy rum drinker. So I decided not to drink rum no more because it reminded me of that person, right? So I've been biased because of that for years, the honest the truth, right? So now I've gotten the pleasure of trying all these rums, right? Um, the best one right now for me, my palate is not like yours as far as tequila. Yeah, I can, wine. Yeah, but rum, you got me. But the Equiano, that was delicious. I made a daiquiri. It was the best daiquiri I've ever had. Like I, I had to make a second cocktail at home. It was that good. So I want to learn some more rums that can actually have that same impact as the Equiano. Because
I mean,
Equiano,
there's a lot. There's a
I
lot of good rum. I mean, there's a lot of good rum out there that I can always recommend.
mm-hmm.
I believe there's a rum for every palate, and trust you me, whether you're looking at rum from Jamaica or Barbados or wherever island it might be, there's something good for your palate and at a better price than a bourbon or a whiskey. I'm sorry to say, but that's the truth, hands
Okay, so do
down.
you suggest this? So do you suggest this in cocktails, or you suggest these in a King Rock or neat? How do you suggest these?
Generally, in terms of price per dollar, rum is better, hands down. I don't even see why we're discussing it. I don't even see why people are like making a big fuss of it. It's a truth. It
No,
has
I
always
get
been the
that.
truth.
I'm with you. I'm asking you, how do you suggest you drink the rum? How do you suggest you drink the rum? On the rocks, neat,
I mean,
in a
either
cocktail,
way
in a
out,
daiquiri?
either way out, whatever you like, however you like, do you, because in the end of the day, that's how I recommend to people, do you, because I like it in any other way. Like if a consumer was to come and say, can I put Appleton 12 over let's say Coca-Cola, you know, I'll be like, do you, but I will never personally, I will never do with soda on top. That is like an insult. It's like you slapping my face and saying you're stupid, But then if you're just like starting off, and I mean, like if you have the money and that's not a problem to you, do you?
See, okay, so if you ask me the same question with tequila, I would say, well, with Blanco, yes, go ahead, make it margarita, make it Paloma, make it whatever cocktail, make it such and such. But with Reposado, yeah, gently glide into making a cocktail with it. But the anejo, extra anejo, just please drink it neat on a
It's
king
it's
rock.
cause it's because there's a lot of expressions of rum, and the qualities of rum are very different depending on not just where it comes from, but the producers. So, given an example, if we were looking at say the Worthy Park Tough, which has been finished in a sherry cask, or the
Mm-hmm.
Oloroso, that's something you take over the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who, because of plain either ignorance or just choice, or just want to destroy, they just do it. And I'm like, you know what? If
Not destroy,
that's what
not
you,
destroy.
I mean, if that's what you like, do you? You know, it's like seeing someone take. Normally, like if you're looking at, for example, the Havan 23
Mm-hmm.
ram, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
normally taken with a cigar. If you find someone doing it with a soda, let him be. Just let them be. Like it's them. But if you and me, I would just take it with a cigar or with chocolates. Why will I destroy something beautiful?
Just have a nail with chocolate and
Because
own it.
for me that's how I like tasting it, and that's how I recommend tasting it. You
So,
know,
okay. So I get it. So with me with cocktails, right? So suppose somebody wants tequila and I want to introduce them to, so I have a great mezcal cocktail and I want you to try it just to, upgrade your palate. You said, no, I just always drink tequila and what have you?
so for
So
example,
I'm gonna
so
make that margarita for you. I'm gonna make that cocktail for you.
if you're making a margarita, right, and
Hmm.
you ask me what my choice of margarita would be like, I
Hmm.
would choose like Fortaleza, or the Don Julio as a standard, like for a basic consumer of what a margarita is. But then
Hmm.
the moment you introduce something like a mezcal, something like either the espadín from Oaxaca or something like that, then it makes it
Mexican mezcal,
different.
simple.
But
Yeah.
but then again, it also ensures the consumer doesn't get lost. They're able to see the differences. I think it's just to remind the consumer why this category is that diverse, why the agave category is diverse, why the rum category is diverse. So, like the daiquiri is normally the classic cocktail that people use to show the diverseness of this particular category. Because
Hmm.
if you cannot make a daiquiri, no matter what other drink you do out there, I'll be like, listen, I just asked for three things, remember? Because
You're
rum, rum,
biased.
sugar. I'm not biased.
You're such a rum
You
bias.
like
Nothing
the moment,
matters but rum. Look, nothing matters but rum to you.
no,
You
like,
like,
have you ever walked
and
into
I,
a
I
place?
respect the love though. I respect the love.
No,
Your passion comes
no,
through by rum,
but
you know?
no, think about it. Have you ever walked into a place and they make you crappy mojitos or crappy daiquiris? It is horrifying. It is a nightmare. So for me to avoid that nightmare, I'm just like, listen, the recipe is simple. 45 ml or 50 ml of your favorite rum, lime, fresh lime, sugar,
Sugar.
ice. Just shake this thing and strain it. That simple. If you cannot even do that, how else can I trust you to make an old fashioned? Or how else can I trust
We
you to
can make
make?
a sidecar. You can make a side. We haven't even mentioned cognac. You can make a sidecar. It's three ingredients too.
It's a three ingredient process. It's the one that I used to get people around with. Like if you say you love tequila and you cannot make a margarita, I'll be like, please, what? You said you do what? I'm like, hmm? Or
So
if you say
I
you
was
like,
talking in reference of upgrading somebody's palate, right? You say you let
yeah,
them. You would say yes. This is how you like it with Coke, right? But I like mine with XYZ. So what I'm saying is, my point is, I will usually say I will let you have whatever you're having, then I will make you this other cocktail, and I say, well, try this. I will
so for
first go to
example,
you.
like in a case like that, so if we were looking at, for example, the daiquiri. If we
Mm-hmm.
start with a Bacardi or Havana 3 years, then you move the person up to something like Mount Gay, or you move them up to Rare Nephew, move them up to something totally different like Ate Punch, which is the same as classic daiquiri, but it uses French agricole rum. It kind of exposes them to the different style of, you know, and all that. So it's still on the same level, by
Mm-hmm.
using different expressions of rum or different category or different styles of rum, it helps them understand what is the difference. So you clearly start with Havana 3 years or
Mm-hmm.
Bacardi, then you move them up to Mount K, then you move them up to things like Clarine, Rum Agricole. By the time they get to Clarine and Rum Agricole, they're kind of familiar with why rum is that huge or rum is that different or diverse, you know. But then if you're looking at something like a rum old fashion, then you start them off with a Bacardi 8, Havana 7, Worthy Park.
Like Copper
I mean,
23.
yeah, like if you know,
So in my
but
bar, I'm lacking a lot of rum. I have Bacardi regular. I have Bacardi 8, which I have a cocktail with Bacardi 8.
oh, what
It's a cup of 23. Hmm?
what is interesting? My staple favorite is always hands down gonna be the Appleton.
Really? Jamaica,
Appleton,
Jamaica.
Appleton is always gonna be the classic. Like
Of
if you
course.
cannot do Appleton, then please just do some Mount Gay, please.
I
For,
have
for,
one
for
get 12.
because the Mount Gay is like a baseline, you know. Mount Gay,
Okay.
House of Angostura is baseline. And those are like the rums that you need to have in your back bar that are good to work with and that are flexible enough to show the different diverse styles of making rum or tasting rum and or how they taste and stuff like that.
My bar is Scotch and bourbon heavy, and tequila is building more since I've been there. Trying to build out mezcal right now, but rum is definitely. I just got Santa Teresa from
Mhm.
Venezuela, which is good. My good friends, So I said, okay, I'll pick up, and it's pretty good. I did try it in a daiquiri as well. It was good. It was really
So,
good.
question: what do you think of rums that have added sugar?
I,
I mean, there's a lot of crappy stuff out there. I wanna get it from you. What do you think?
like
I
I
mean, we
don't
see.
like a. I don't like I would say I disagree. Actually really depends on how much sugar is added. But I
Mhm.
would like it in its most natural state than added sugar. Put it that way.
Because there is a lot. You see, that's a difference, and I guess that's the thing that people need to understand. The premium side of rum is not defined by the sweetness of the product, because a product being premium does not mean adding vanillin or glycerol to sweeten
Hmm.
stuff up. It just means that you've done your distillation properly, you've done your aging properly, and you're basically bottling them properly. But then we see so much stuff out there that is just considered premium, and then it's just honestly it's not,
Added sugar.
and it's just added sugar. Yeah.
Now, even with wine, I don't care for extra residual sugar. Like champagne, I always, want to make sure that they add some more sugar to it. I don't care for additional sugar.
So yeah, we were talking about so interestingly something about wine. I told you that I have never a wine. But let me tell you what is very interesting. So I saw there's this movie about sommelier, right? It's
I
about
saw it.
a
Yeah, I saw
black
it.
who
Hmm.
like it's actually a very inspirational thing. You come to think about it, it's inspiration. But I happen to have friends who, for some weird reason, they like wine. I do not gradually because when they like their wine, they like stuff that is either white or red that is sweet. And I'm
Hmm.
still horrified. So what I try to do nowadays is introduce them to what I would call proper wine. For me,
And
proper
when is a
wine,
proper wine? Oh, what is proper wine to you?
I So I am drawn to full body wines, stuff like the Merlot, the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yes.
That's the stuff that I want to drink, the Chardonnay vintages and stuff like that. But when
Mhm.
you start telling me like sweet stuff, I'm like, please, I don't want to
So,
go there.
so with wine, right? With me, so I initially worked at a Spanish restaurant for like 4 years, and I would go to work and I would just taste wine, cover, just know the difference, of the region, Spain, and I love Spanish wines, right? So then I moved on to this place that I'm at, which has everything. So now I am tasting this, I'm tasting that, I'm knowing the difference between this cab from Bordeaux and this cab from California and what have you. Then I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So every time we do tastings, I'll go, everybody say, I taste this and I taste that and I taste this and I go, I don't taste nothing. It's
I,
grapes,
I will get the
right?
same. I will get the same thing, especially when we sat for the WSET, because you sit for the WSET, and I was like, I was horrified for the wine test because I'm not good at it. I don't remember half of the stuff because you gotta remember the grapes, and I was like, listen, this is why I don't do wine because half of the stuff in wine is just you either get it or you don't.
Don't get it,
So
yeah.
so some folks in the class passed. Some folks like us, we were just like, yes, I know. I can, like I can walk into a store and tell you what is good, what's a good one, right?
Right.
But if you ask me if I remember half of the stuff that we learn in class, I'm like, listen, that is why I
Listen,
wasn't good at that.
when I tell you someone was frustrating, when I went and took my someone, oh man, like and when I thought I was ready, I would open this one page and this second page would say something different. And I'm like, oh my God, I have 2 days to get all this down. I got Italy, I got South Africa, I got Spain, I have all these regions. And I'm like, I'm supposed to remember the terroir for all of this and remember everything. It was frustrating. But I will tell you this, what helps is tasting, continuous tasting. I taste so much to where when I was rolling up on Psalm 2, I was like, psh, I know
So
what
yeah,
this is.
exactly. You see the way you get excited with wine. Now that
Yeah,
for me was how I was getting excited when you were talking
with
about
rum.
rum, tequila,
Yeah,
mezcal, whiskey. That is
yeah.
fine. That for me is the safe ground. That's where I can talk and I can taste, and I'm like, okay, fine. But then when you talk about because I think it was, and I guess it was because I was drawn to stuff that my palate was easier to remember. Like
Hmm,
it's
hmm.
easier to remember in like different if you're talking about gin for example, it's just about the different botanicals, so you could be able to pick different botanicals and tell that this is a particular gin. But then with wine I was like, I mean, like I had a colleague in class who would be like, they will taste it and they'll tell you based on this it has an altitude of, like, I'm like,
Oh no, I'm
how do
not.
you
I'm
even
not. I'm not. I will tell you what high altitude. I will tell you the difference, but I cannot in pick.
like,
No.
how annoying that is? You meet someone in class and they're like, it's got the altitude of, I'm like, listen, I'm done. I'm done. Stop it. I'm not even going to try to act like I know it. I'm like, yeah,
No, so when
like,
you talk about rum pairing, like when I do, I pair with chefs where I pair this first course from Champagne to a late harvest Riesling or Hungary. I go to Hungary for this sweet Tokai. Sorry, I'm thinking of my friend Tokiwa. Tokais, and it's so when you get to the end and people are like, oh my God, this is dessert and it goes so well and oh my God. So where the mistake is, people they do not know where their palates are and what they're looking for in wine. So they start drinking all the sweet stuff, as you say, right? So if you walk up to my bar and say you want um what is it? The one that's sweet as white wine is so sweet. I choose to forget it because I don't care about it. What
I mean,
is
there's
it?
so much cheap wine that is horrible. Let's just,
No, you have to know what you're eating. It depends. Wine really goes so you can drink wine when you're not eating, or you can drink it wine. You can find a wine you can pair with a cigar very well. You have a deep, heavy red, you can just devour and,
but you
and,
see,
and
the same
totally
way
get
you're
with
saying like that,
chocolate. Hmm?
the same way you're saying like that, if you gave me a choice, Like, listen, if you literally gave me a choice between, okay, even forget the fact that we had rum. If you give me a choice between
Yeah.
wine and tequila, I would rather have tequila than wine.
What if I
It
make
is
you a cocktail with tequila and the wine?
no, that is interesting.
I'm
Very
saying.
interesting. Because still, it's like how you go back into your past and you remember that bad experience, and you're like, please, after drinking 5 liters and you went down the road, like I don't know.
Good.
I'm like, yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate. Next, please.
I get it. I mean, you have to know you have to
But
know what you like and what
but
it does for your body the next day. You know?
I've been open enough to like open different wine bottles and taste, but I'm like, I will still, that will like, that's because I was forced, or that's because I was in a position where I have friends who like wine. But then for me, if you want me to like wine, let's make it on a steak sauce, like a steak sauce or something, like I'm just, or an ice cream or something.
Listen, wine is delicious. I will wake up and go, oh, today I want a Pinot. Like everything in my mouth says I want a Pinot, and I know exactly where the Pinot is from and what taste I'm looking for. And it's such a beautiful thing for me to. Everybody knows me for cocktails, but
Okay,
like
so
when I understand wine so much now that I'm like I can pop a bottle and we can talk about
yeah.
it.
Yeah, have you tried pisco?
Pisco, yes.
Pisco is like a more mature wine,
Mine, yeah.
technically, and
Mm.
it's hands down.
It's okay. I'm not a Pisco fan though. I'm not a Pisco fan.
It's the same thing as the way brandy is an acquired taste.
Mm.
Like the taste of brandy for me it took a very long time before actually I got to accept it. It was something I was struggling to accept.
Why? What was it so hard?
I mean, it was easier for me to accept Pisco. I think Pisco was much more lighter and much more less of intensity than your average cognac or brandies and stuff like that. I don't
Mm.
know, for some reason, the heaviness of the brandy wasn't appealing to the palate at the when I started. And to this date, it's still one of those things. Yes, I could and it's so interesting how you could talk about these different topics or train people on these different topics, but there's always those one or two things that you find yourself leaning to that you can actually talk about them in your sleep.
Oh
Like
yeah.
so, like for me now, it's gotten to a point where I could talk about African, whatever African are producing in my sleep, and I'll be like, "Yo, this place produces this. This place produces," and I'm like, "Yes, you know."
There are things I can talk about in my sleep too. And maybe a Alsatian Riesling or a German
Mhm.
Riesling, the difference.
Burgundy, 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 a Chardonnay.
Yeah. So
I'm
no,
like,
you know what has gotten me comfortable is I have people will call me and say, "Hey, we need somebody to come talk about one," and I'm like, "Do you understand that I'm not a sommelier yet? I'm only like level still working." But I think
"Hmm?
that with the pandemic, what I did was I just went ahead and studied, and then all those things happened with the quarter sommelier, and I was like, I don't want no parts. I don't want to be associated or affiliated with all that. So I just went ahead and just kept studying, and I keep studying. I have my mentor in wine that teaches me he knows. He keeps up with what I have to where I should be. So I have somebody that's keeping me accountable for my studies of wine and my progress. And I suggest for anybody that's in this industry that's very, very like in tune to, they want to be in this, to find somebody to encourage them that will hold them, accountable for what their wishes are or what aspirations they have to be part of this industry. So I'm enjoying this conversation.
We are definitely enjoying this conversation. I just wanted to speak on. So, what do you think for Black women, especially in this industry? What's something that I can take away from you as someone who's a trailblazer? Because you are a trailblazer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Um, You know what? The most important thing is to just know your shit. Excuse my language. Um, Study, read, ask, go see other people, see other women that are doing the same thing that you aspire to be, and see what levels they are, and see where you are, and see what you got to do to measure up if that's your journey. I don't be afraid to learn from other women. Don't be afraid to say, sis, excuse me, when you did this, you talked about this. Can you teach me that? I missed that. Hey, I heard you know about XYZ. Can you teach me? Do you have time to teach me this? I ask questions, and I have my friends in my circle that know more than I do, and I would say, what book do I need to read? What should I look up? Send me a link, And so it's
So,
a constant. Go ahead.
I mean, so it's interesting that you're saying that because agave wasn't one of those things that I predominantly fell for. But then, like in the recent, I think 6 years, I have been studying a lot about it, and it's interesting because not only studying, but when you get to taste some of these things, you like it brings you closer to why certain things are so unique and so interesting that once you open yourself to it, you want to move away from what people know to stuff that is more or less unknown that is better. So,
Mm-hmm.
like if you look at, for example, how mezcal is so different based on just even the plant, it just reminds you that those small things in life make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see people who have done it for such a long time, it actually humbles you. Like, I mean, like you read about Del Maguey and you're like, this guy did this back in like 1987.
Yeah, I have the
He
book.
created, and he created a path for people. And now when you think about agave, now we're not even talking about, the different mezcals. We're actually talking about how do we make it sustainable such that it's not, because it's now becoming bigger and bigger. But now the questions right now around sustainability are not even the story, which is also very interesting because I don't think he ever saw this become this big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you speaking on the mezcal part? Because
Yeah,
I
I'm just
feel like,
speaking of how mezcal just he has boomed and now there's a crisis. And we, especially in the industry, we need to remember that and just take into consideration what can we do to prevent the extinction of these plants because some of these things take like 20, 30 years, meaning that
oh, yeah.
we need to play our part to not just ensure that it's effective, but it's maintained at a place that it's and that means that we have to get back to understanding, yes, all these spirits do serve a purpose, but at the same time, how will we play in our role as being the gatekeepers of all this interesting stuff that is so how can you as a person play a role in being a gatekeeper?
I
Have you
think
ever thought about that?
I never thought about it, but I would say definitely awareness and trying to find a way to support. I would not know. I think this is a question I would reverse back to you. What would you suggest as a solution
I think, I
besides
mean, so
awareness and teaching each, letting more people be aware, so they be a
at
force
some
in
point,
numbers.
it's gonna get to a point where people need to pay a premium for some of these things because of the fact that I mean, and not just a premium towards the producer, but they need to actually pay homage to the people that are making the product. Because in the end of the day, one thing that I learned about mezcal or just craft African spirits is that the people down who are making it are very poor. So all they need is the support for you to make it better for them. So in as much as we can afford to buy, what can we as people do to actually go and see and make their lives better? Because it can be something as simple as buying a still or rallying around the community and making sure that they have something, because that's what's more important.
Okay, I get that. I totally now I understand where you going with it. Um, And then again, I'll ask you, what do you
Yeah.
have set up for somebody to set up? Do we have to set up a fund so they can get it still? Who is the active one that's actually in these villages and making sure that we are taking care of our people and they get the credit that they deserve for their work and also get food for their work? You know, I know there's a story of Ocho Tequila.
Yeah.
Ocho, what they do is they go from village to village, using different agave for their ochos, right? And so for their
Yeah.
blends. But what they do is for that agave that they get from that village, they in turn take care of the whole village. They make sure they have water, they make sure they have food, they have clothes, and the village is taken care of for their agave. How do we implement that in a situation in Africa?
I mean, so that will call because I know there's different youth projects rolling around the different communities, and within the youth projects, there are leaders within those projects. So one of the key things that we have noticed is that we have in spiritualism in Africa, people are actually paying, they're taking the time to actually visit these small, independent, let's call them artisanal distilleries or distillers, right? What can we as people who get to experience this or see these things do to make it better? One, we can definitely rally a campaign around them, a campaign to support them, a campaign to actually show the government that this is something that is as serious and as profitable as possible, but then also make it affordable for the community to make this. Because one of the biggest challenges we normally find is that government is reluctant in investing in an industry if they don't understand the outcome of it. So for example, palm oil, which has been produced for a very long time, it's only until recently that we have started to see palm oil being bottled up. And the moment the government saw that it was bottled up and was looking very interesting in a nice bottle, then
Mhm.
they started to take it seriously. When the investment came from the investors on these villages, then the government started. So it means that people must be willing to actually come through and be a part of the solution. Because these guys can make this stuff, but can you be able to push their stuff in the restaurants? Can you be able to push their stuff in wherever you are? If you are, then you've been part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Do you think that corruption plays a part?
Yeah, hell, you know that you know corruption in Africa is big. Is that something like we even speak about? Like you don't need to be told.
It has to be said, you know. So it's awareness for the people that don't know, you know, the people that would ultimately support the cause. They need to know the facts and things that are happening. Um, but I definitely would like to work with you on
I
this.
mean,
If
that's why we gotta see, like, if you look at South Africa, for example, the confidence within the small distillers came from the fact that the government was willing to move away from it and let the investors take part and parcel of the industry. That's what needs to happen. A lot more front forward activism and demand for better in this industry, and not just from people within the local market, but also people from the external market, people who believe that this industry can be better. So, in as much as I may voice out my opinion, bigger brands or bigger people within the industry, the same industry, whether from different regions, should be able to actually expose this because you cannot do this alone. You cannot just assume the bartenders here can do that alone. So, for example, if we had a mentorship for different bartenders, right, across the different regions, then that would mean people would start to take this industry more better for the people down there because most people take bartending here as last resort. If you realize, most people don't really consider this as a career here. Yet
mhm.
in that's a challenge because we don't get as much in as much as the brands can do the heavy work of doing training and stuff. You can imagine the power of something like Tails or Turning Over Tables coming to do a mentorship program here, putting that value into the people. It will give people a reason to believe, a reason to see that there is more, because people can only dream as big or as far as where they have seen. So, if, for example, If I've never been out of my village, how am I supposed to know that someone can be the best bartender, for example, in Savoy or whatever it might be?
So I'm actually a member of Speed Red Committee for mentorship, and we're just actually rolling out a peace program, and it's just like about 200 mentors on the Speed Red Committee, and I'll send you that information, and I'll suggest it to Lynette, because
I spoke to, so funny enough, I spoke to Lynette about bringing Speedrock to Africa
mm-hmm,
because I know it's possible.
yeah,
We already have female industry leaders who can take the mantle up that I can recommend and we can do it. That would be a good thing. Honestly, it would be a good thing because we need to see more ladies get into the industry and have the confidence, because it's one thing to train people, it's another thing to give them confidence. It's another thing for them to see and believe that this is possible. Because even when you see me do this live sessions with you and these different people, all I'm just trying to show people is that your future is right in front of you. Like you, if I could do, like if I could talk to you or if I could talk to Lynette, you two can be able to get to that place. And it's because I just started, I showed you the door. By
mm-hmm,
telling someone else's story, I'm just trying to show you that somewhere, someday, you too can achieve it. That's why I do this. I don't, I need people to see it. I need people to believe that Africa still has potential. And
and
especially for people,
here
and
I am.
especially, yeah,
Even though I'm in
because,
America, but here I am. I still represent Africa. You
yeah.
know, each day I'm here, whatever event that I do, I represent Africa.
The good thing about it is always that when Africans come to the table, they shake things up, they rattle things up. We cause, we bring the fire, we bring everything. Because it's like if you know you have nothing to lose, if you've been down at the dump, when you get to the top, you bring in the whole entire clan to the top. It's
Amen.
like, so the more reason for companies like Speedrack and Tales of a Cocktail to actually be challenged and set up mentorship programs around regions like this, whether it's in
Hmm.
Africa or it's in Asia, because that's where the challenge is. Because if you do that, then you spur the growth of not just a community, but an entire generation of people who can be confident in this industry despite whatever is going on, despite the corona, despite the, you know, travel restrictions and stuff like that. Because I can tell you for a fact, if you bring, let's say, if we have just Speedrack Nairobi, Speedrack Kenya,
Hmm.
you know how many people will register for that just on a given one to. It doesn't even have to be something so big. It can be something so small, but then
Hmm.
the impact of doing that will spur the rest of East Africa. Because
Of
people will be
course.
like, yeah, I want to be like Lynette, or I want to be like um,
Lauren, Ivy.
or Lauren Moje or Ivy, and that's the thing, to show people that dreams do come true.
Hmm.
And it can be something as simple as even after they're done with the competition, they get a live masterclass from Ivy. That will make them happy. That will give them a reason you know, to actually believe and have that confidence. Yes, I could do it.
Hey,
And
and I'm
plus, you
doing
guys
it.
now get a network of sisters from the motherland. What other way? Ha!
Doing it. I'm doing it for the motherland every time you see me.
Yeah.
And I don't hide it. When I'm talking about
Any
wine, I
question?
talk about South Africa wine. Look, when I talk about wine, I talk about wine, wine, wine. I'm messing with you.
I
South
will. I
African
will.
wine's the best. Give me a
Yeah.
pinotage anytime. Give me a Riesling from South Africa. Give me a
Give me a Chardonnay or a
Chenin
Cabernet.
Blanc. Chenin Blanc from South Africa, delightful. Get you a bottle you're close by. It won't be
I mean,
sweet, I
definitely.
promise.
Nothing sweet, please. No.
No, 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 no sweet, no sweet.
Any,
Chenin Blanc are not sweet at all. Yeah.
any questions for me?
Say that again.
Do you have any questions for me?
Do I have any questions from Pinotage? Yes, yes, Ramona Pinotage, my favorite. Questions for you. Um, so all these ROMs that you've talked about, can you compile a
Yeah.
list of them and email them to me? So I can learn more. Can you build my ROM knowledge? Okay.
So here's the thing. Let me make a suggestion. How about what's the day that you're available? We can do this. We can do a session, one session per week, with
Mm-hmm.
everyone on board. Then we can go through different things about RAM and just what do you
So
think?
you
Once per
suggesting
week.
doing this once a week? We do a ROM class on live.
Yes.
Oh,
What do you gotta lose?
nothing. How long is this class for? Because I'm supposed to be in class right now.
45 minutes.
45 minutes?
45 minutes at most. We can cover stuff like we can just cover like different rams. We can, whether it's from Barbados, what are the rules? What do you need to know about Barbadian rum? We cover all that, and then like what are the classic styles for a particular region and stuff like that. What are the flavors that work? And by the time we're done, at least everyone has a familiar understanding of everything from 0 to 100. You know,
Okay. Okay. You know
hopefully.
what?
What
I think
what
I'm
what
gonna
do you
take
say
you up
about
on
that?
that because I really, really, really need to improve my rum knowledge. So I would take you up on this because I would never say no to education.
Okay.
So
So
we
you
gotta
pick the
decide
date.
what day of the
And
week. We
then,
gotta just decide one day, and we have to commit to that day every week because I can't do the
yes.
switcheroo.
Yeah. We commit to one day and then
Okay.
it's just 20 to 30 minutes at most 45. And then we can run through the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will hold you to that.
So you give me a day and then we do it. I'm sure everyone is
Okay.
gonna be part of it. Ramona is gonna be part of it because already now she's asking loads of questions about it. So yeah, more reason for her
Ramona,
to be
yes.
good.
Ramona is a
Yeah, so
sponge. She's a
yeah.
sponge.
So that she
She's
has
ready.
good reason to pick something good at the store. None of that crappy stuff we see bottom
Well, she
shelf.
already, I'm sure she already have. Did you just pick up something, Ramona? You picked up. What did you pick up?
What
I
did you
told
pick, Ramona?
you. We, the inquiring minds would like to know. And low key
Yes, I
judge
want to
you.
know what did you pick? I hope she's not gonna say some. I don't know. Let's say what. What does she say?
She got Malibu.
No, 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 no. Please,
I picked up
just
Georgia Run. Georgia Run. Or she meant to say
Juju
rum.
rum. I think that's a Juju rum. Like I think it's a local distillery from where she
Oh,
is.
oh,
Or
Richland. Oh,
Richland.
got you, got you. Yeah, yeah.
Richland is okay. Yeah, Richland is okay. I don't. I will speak about it. We'll speak about it next when we start the class. I ain't gonna say nothing right now.
I'm not
Nothing.
in it. I'm just minding my own business.
I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be good now. I don't want.
So Ramona
Yeah,
came on the show and she made a cocktail with Ray and nephew. So as we'll say, Ray and nephew them, you know.
yeah.
And the chef, she couldn't. Me and like I told you, me and Rum. Mm-mm. So I did try the cocktail. It was beautiful, but Ray and nephew, that's a true Jamaican thing. You know, a real Jamaican. Everywhere you go, it's
Rare
bottle they
nephew is a
have.
stinky.
Yeah. So
Rare nephew or ram fire is like those things that you need to have somewhere in, like under the table. Somewhere.
I have
When the
lots
when
of
the
gin. Right now, my house is loaded with gin and cognac. I have a lot of cognac and gin. It's
you
not because I
lucky.
bought it. It was just like, here, we want you to make stuff. So, and it's all different kinds of gin. And I'm like,
You're super lucky. You got something in your shop right now. Like my stock is just I ain't got no stock anymore. Like
why?
I so yeah. Guys haven't been back to work. No one has been back to work. I think that's one of the key things. And number two, oh, after all my classes are done, I haven't had the opportunity to get back into, the whole everything that's going on. I
Mhm.
think it's one of those things that just happens, but it's all good. Like we
So
take a
no
day
one
at a
is
time.
sending you bottles?
No, right now, taxes are heavy. What's this thing called? There's been a lot of what's this thing called? Other with the government, getting stuff in is damn expensive. They've made it
Really?
twice expensive than before. So
So
it's one
even
of
if
those things that
somebody
really,
mail you a bottle that's expensive?
I mean, it's easier to get something at the store that is accessible. So like right now, there's only one store that has like a specialty store where we can be able to source stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
then meanwhile, it's a mess. The whole industry is a mess, which is
Oh
something we didn't
wow.
get to talk about. It's something that I'm hoping that the government can just stop fucking up because they're doing a lot of fuck ups. Honestly, not all
Well,
the in.
how did the rum bar that you had a live the other day and you were help opening a
Oh
rum bar?
yeah. So the
Yeah.
Rumba officially, they opened last week.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive. They have stocked around 60 rums. Most of the stuff you can get through your distributors, and that's your Mount Gay, your Bacardis, your Appleton, your Ron Matusalem, and stuff like that. The rest, they have to source from outside because then again, only very few people can be able to source some of these things because rum hasn't always been the spirit of choice for most people, but then it's picking up, you know. So that's something we're just trying to see what they can do. Honestly, like I feel it being the first rum bar in Nairobi, they have really tried to add so much in terms of stock, and they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to use what is available in the different specialty stores across the region, which is a good thing. But then, that means that you still have to source more and more. Because as it becomes more clearer, as people get to visit the bar, they getting to see rum from a very different perspective. So sooner or later, this mess just needs to. That's why I was telling you, like, this mess needs to end. The whole COVID situation needs to end, and people get back their businesses. Because, like, pre-COVID, things were good. I mean, bringing
Mm-hmm.
stuff was easy. And now, with a loss of business, there's nothing much we could do. That's how I got into the botanical farm actually, because I mean, when COVID hit, things turned out just everything down the drain.
Plus,
Then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna work on the farming, which I did. Farming, wellness, mindfulness, then monkeys, locusts, all the yaras, just
so
live life.
what are you doing with the product? Are you distilling? What are you doing? Are you selling it to somebody to utilize it in making rum? What are you doing?
So currently on the farm, I have artemisian, lavender. We have the guavas, we have the loquats, we have 10 different mint herbs. I mean, so the stuff that I get or the stuff that I grow, I during the whole COVID situation, I did make different syrups, make different tinctures. It was just a time for me to just learn and reflect on the different techniques around making cocktails, just developing cocktails. Right now, as we're speaking, there is a company that is trying to make a new gin in the market,
Mm-hmm.
and I was to help them source actually some of the ingredients, which I did. But you realize that even making something as simple as gin is not that simple because even the so-called botanicals, they're not found in like one particular region. Some stuff needs to be sourced from even outside Kenya. So, which is something that most people now don't seem to understand. But then it's also very interesting how people think it's easy to make a particular category, but then when you break it down for them, they're like, okay, wow. So this is why it's that price. And so, yeah. And especially for an industry that is pretty new here in Kenya, it's a very interesting trajectory to see that people are getting more confident in investing in the industry here.
I'm surprised to hear that because I feel like with tourism, it's a lot of people that from America will say, "We're going to Kenya, we're going to Kenya," and I
Yeah,
always
because
wonder.
when they go or when they come to Kenya, the idea of a safari is national park, Mombasa, pretty much watch the Maasais. That's
Mhm,
it. And
mhm,
I feel, well, that is like the concept of traditional tourism. There is a lot to learn. Forget what the safari expedition is. It's okay to go and visit the giraffes, the monkeys, whatever, and all that. But then away from that, how are the people living? What are some of the things that you can see? So, for example, I mean, if you're a big fan of fish, we have places like Lake Turkana, yes, where there is a lot of fish, but the fishing industry there is a mess. So if you can be a part of the solution in a case like that, then you're gonna do a lot for people on that side, where they don't have to harvest fish and then it goes to wastage. So like those small things are the small things that people can actually do to make a big difference, to forget the fact that it's not just going to see the national park, but what can we do to make those small differences? You know,
wow, I really
because
would
those
have
are the
thought
things that
that.
because those are the things that we don't get to think about. Like even something as simple as So for example, I don't know if you know about this, the people who make the basket using
The way it's yeah.
the reeds. You see how much people buy that stuff in America, and then you see how much they get here. It's the price variations are very different, and sometimes I feel like people need to explore those ways of tourism whereby you can not only can you invest in a industry like that, but you can give back to that industry. You know, if you can, that is, if you're into art, if you're into whatever it might be, because all these things play a part of the bigger picture. Whether you're buying African art, whether you're buying African baskets, or whether you're buying the shuka, whatever it might be.
Hmm. So, what status is Kenya in right now as far as the virus as or the vaccine or anything like that?
So the vaccine landed 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Um, as we're speaking, people are still getting administered. There are some people who are still skeptical of the vaccine as
Mhm.
well, which also brings out to the point that it was last week that the president of Tanzania died. People supposedly say it was poisoning, but chances are it was COVID because he apparently never accepted that COVID did exist. But then, whatever
Mm.
happened, it's a sad
What do you?
thing to. Yeah, they lost the president on when was it? This week on Monday.
Oh wow. So where
Yeah,
do you stand? Where do you stand with the vaccine thing?
I mean, people should just get vaccinated and just take care of themselves, stay safe, sanitize. I think having seen what it can do or how far it can go, I feel it's really important that people stay safe.
That's true. I know
With
that
us,
I
us
know that
Africans,
with the go ahead.
you know, the thing with us Africans, we're always waiting for the last minute. You realize that we're very stubborn. Even when you're sick, you're like, hey, please, me, I'm not sick. Wait, why? I will try like all the traditional medicine. If that doesn't work, then maybe then can I go to your doctor? You know?
Right, right. So have you guys been on lockdown there?
Yeah, there's been a lockdown. Curfew is still until, so yes, you can, for guys who are running the restaurant, you can run the restaurant all the way to 8:30 p.m. By
Mhm.
9:15 you're supposed to close. So they're closing early, but they also open up early from 10.
Okay, so I know that South Africa had cut down liquor alcohol sales Monday. They were allowed to shop for alcohol Monday through Thursday, and they closed the liquor stores down for the weekend. Was that the same for you all?
Um, they okay. I wouldn't say they closed. People just got it went online, digital delivery, right? Or
Oh
online
wow.
delivery.
Hmm.
So it, the online sales for online stores got up. They shot up. So it's like people, the more the government tried to restrict, the more people are depressed, more people are stressed. And really just like, it is what it is.
I mean, that's what this pandemic did. If you look at I'm gonna go back. If you look at the wine sales
Don't
skyrocketed
get it. Like I
so high.
remember there was a time um everyone was literally doing an online with a glass of wine. Like
Yeah,
it was, oh my
it's
god, huh?
crazy. It
I'm
was
like, yeah. Now people know I'm like, hey, please, I'm done. I ain't gonna watch nothing right now. But yeah,
yeah.
it's but now it's back to normal. People are more. I think with everything hitting hard, because we've seen a loss of most of the restaurants shut down, like everywhere else.
Hmm.
Most people are not back into the industry. Even for those of us who still wanna get back, we just don't have the complete answers or solutions. I think we just know that whoever will stay will come needs to be more stronger, needs to be more smarter, and they need to find solutions that are sustainable for the industry. So for me, even when I look at it from the farm perspective, I'm like, it has to be sustainable for the industry around. So we need to get more people to grow these herbs and botanicals. And this doesn't just apply to Kenya, it applies to every restaurant out there in the world. If you are able to grow a herb garden for your cocktail menu or whatever it might be, please do it because it's going to cut your costs down. That is important. If you can find ways to recycle or reuse stuff, make sure
Yeah.
you do because right now it's all about cutting those costs, making sure that you cut those costs, but you still retain your staff because your staff are the most important element of that between you and the consumer. You know, you may want to make money, but then if you're making money at the expense of losing quality staff, then you gotta rethink your strategies and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I
What
have
is
we started a garden in my bar. We have started a garden upstairs in a patio for our all the herbs that we use and whatever else we want. But I'm also part of the bartender's garden with Kiara. I'm sure you know her name.
Yeah, and
So
and I definitely, I must say, Kiara is doing an amazing job. She's doing what I want to see more people do. Tell
yeah.
those stories. Make sure that people can see, because it's
Hmm.
not just about the cocktail, but it's also about so much as it's part of your wellness.
Oh yes.
And for every element of this industry, beneath the fluff of cocktails, beneath the fluff of food pairing, these things that we are growing, they're important to our health, they're important to our wellness, and it needs to be at the bottom line of every aspect of our industry. So we
Yes.
cannot just assume that if it's gonna be there if we don't do something up around it. Because when you come to think about tourism, and the bottom line of tourism, whether it is in Africa or whether it's in New York, is food, it's drinks, and where it comes from is important. You
Yes.
cannot tell me your salmon comes from a freezer. That's a lie. Your salmon comes from a place. Wherever it comes from, where it comes from. Don't tell me your potatoes are bodied of, like, so that is important. And
It's
for
very
people
important.
in
And you know,
for people within,
I enjoy going
yeah,
to the garden. I mean, it's like we have a community. So once everything blossoms, hey, you can pass by and pick up some tomatoes from this garden. You can pick up some mint from over here, some basil. You can get pumpkin peppers. It was so many peppers last year, and it doesn't matter whose garden, who grew it. It's like if you needed anything from that garden. So we all get to eat healthy together and just, sustain a healthy lifestyle.
and that is important because even when you think about it, it's not just saving the hospitality, it's saving the lives. Because for such a long time, we have talked about how do we make sustainability of the environment practical. And I was like, if each of us could grow a herb or a tree or a plant, then that means whatever loss or whatever environmental damage you've done to the earth, we can be able to make those small changes.
Yeah.
And within 5, 6 years, it will be better. I mean, I wish every person in the industry who had a child or who had a daughter, whatever it might be, taught them to grow something, which means that if they can be able to grow, let's say a fruit tree, by the time this kid is turning 18, the tree is fully matured, which means you get to taste or eat stuff from your own.
Your labor, fruit of your labor.
Because in the end of the day, we need to start reflecting on the best thing that you can do for any one of us is plant a tree that you never get to sit on or sit under.
Which one? Sit on or sit under?
Get sit under.
Sit
Yeah,
under.
that's the greatest gift. To plant a tree you never get to sit under, which means you get to plant something that 10 years down the line, even if you're not there, people can use that as a memory
Of course.
of being part of a solution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whew. We can talk till tomorrow, okay?
We definitely can talk until tomorrow. So I will give you that assignment. You go and check out. Let me know when we can do the class.
Okay.
What day do you think we can work on it?
Um,
Then we get back to everyone on it.
we can work on it tomorrow. Tomorrow's my last day being mental break. I get back to work this weekend, so we can chat up sometime tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, Sunday I work as well, so tomorrow will be my last.
Okay.
My battery is low, but you
You
want to
weren't
sign
charging your
off
phone.
because
Yeah, I gotta
hmm?
sign off. So, any last words before we sign off?
You know what? It's such a pleasure just chopping it up with you. I had no idea what we're going to talk about. I was all over the place. I was like, are we going to talk cocktails? Are we going to talk? What are we going to talk about? Like
Don't worry.
my life, my
No
what
matter.
so I'm sort of glad. I'm glad I did manifest the way it's so natural. We just talked about different things, and I learned something from you. I don't know if you learned anything from me today or not, but I learned so much from you today.
Shout out to you. I want to say thank you for this amazing conversation. This and like I mean, generally, all Africans we make a good. We make this.
We do.
Hakuna
Yeah,
Matata. You're like yeah, just floating. Yeah, thank
absolutely.
you. Stay safe. And for everyone who's watching, it was an amazing time to have you guys. I hope you'll bump up with us for our rum sessions with none other than you, right?
Dude, Thandi pours cocktails.
Take care. Have a good night. Stay safe,
Thank you,
my dear.
brother. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Hey, shout out to everyone who was watching. I hope you all enjoyed. In case you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. And we'll see you on our next episode. Stay safe. God bless. Good night.